evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio. Your old friend Virgil back once again with, that's right, the two co-hosts, Jeff and Mark. Say hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
There it is. I set it up on a tee for them. The three-headed monster, I gotta say it. So we left off last time, I think 2 episodes ago with Jeff. We were talking about some in-depth kind of projection info, damage of film, details of the projection, things like that. And we didn't want to leave that go. So we're going to jump back into it where we left off. And Mark, where did we leave off?
When we last left you with Jeff, we were talking about carload pricing per person versus per car, which is something that's always fascinated and been a bit of wonderment for me as to why a theater goes one way or the other. And the other thing I had on my list, we were talking about film damage, which we got into the nitty-gritty of that, which was very interesting. I was in the booth once. The one time I was in the booth, and I heard Jeff talking with our friend Jeff C about a green print. And it was explained to me then, but because I'm kind of an idiot, I forgot what it was. So if you could explain to me and the folks at home, Jeff, exactly what a green print is.
A green print is a print that is new and has basically no lubrication on it. Now there's a process called, it used to be called Scotch guarding, almost like you did for clothing way back when. And what it does is it puts a protective coating on the film that helps prevent scratches and stuff like that. And it also provides some lubricating to the film. When you have a green print, means it has no anything on it. And usually when a green print goes through the projector, it will be very loud and very noisy because it's actually sticking to the metal part inside the projector. So yeah, it's a little harder for the motor to move it through. It's louder because the sprockets are all sticking to the film, and it just makes a heck of a lot more noise. It won't damage the film except in extreme cases. What it might do is it might jitter a little bit on the screen. Instead of the image being stock still, it will sometimes move around a little bit, and that's because it's sticking in that main gate. It's actually sticking to the film rails where it rides. So green prints, nobody likes to play them. Sometimes you have no choice. And sometimes you get a green print and you put film lubricant. They do sell film lubricant, and you can put the film through that.
What's that process? Literally by hand?
Yeah, basically by hand, unless you have an automated machine that'll do it. But yeah, you take a piece of lint-free cloth, you put some film lubricant on it, and you squeeze the film and just run it between your fingers.
Wow. Almost like you would do when you're inspecting?
Exactly.
Wild.
Now, if you have the time to do that and do like all 6 reels or whatever, I mean, that's fine. But they really should do it when they process it and not send it out green to begin with.
What would be that reason? Is that an oversight on the part of them producing that print?
I would think it's either an oversight or they're just being cheap.
Right, a process cut out type of thing. They're like, well, it'll naturally get lubricated by the projectors.
Exactly. And with a green print, that's eventually what happens. It goes through so many projectors, it finally starts getting a little lubricant, a little oil from the projectors themselves, getting smeared on the film. So it eventually does get lubricated one way or the other. But I would say if it comes in that way, either they're being cheap or, if it's a mass print, like, 1,500, 2,000, like first run films used to be, maybe they just missed one or something. That's possible.
Yeah.
But the last green print I remember us running was Clerks. We had that when we had the one Kevin Smith Fest.
Wow. That was it, the QT print?
No, it wasn't. No, it was I'm sorry. I thought it was Clerks, but it was one of the Kevin Smith films was green.
Yeah.
And it was making a real racket when it went through the projector, and the image was jumping around on the screen.
Yeah, so I know that we did source a Clerks print from somewhere else that wasn't QT. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was it. I'm pretty sure that was it.
Wow, how about it?
And it was green and it was moving around on the screen, and I didn't like it, but there was nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Well, obviously running 35 millimeter, like we talked about the last time we were together with the good, bad, and the ugly situation, there's certain things that we have to deal with and hurdles that we have to jump and expect to have to jump.
Right.
Running 35 millimeter exclusively. And that's something certainly I'm learning more and more as we go. And even this year, this is a good place to talk about it. We had, and Jeff can explain it better than me, but we had one of our cells burn out in the number 2 projector generator. Am I correct by saying cell?
Well, that's not a bad word for it. It was actually one of the taps.
Right.
They call them taps because as you move those wires up the taps, you're giving the bulb more and more amperage.
Right.
And what happened is the tap that projector was on, the nuts became loose on the bolt heads and it started to arc.
Yeah.
And it eventually burned completely through the tap. So it's completely gone. So now it goes from tap 3 to tap 5. Number 4 is completely burned out and gone.
And this was a lesson to me, because this is equipment that, normally you're used to working with in this day and age, dials and knobs and this and that, where what we're dealing with here is literally a piece of copper that connects to a piece in the generator that the only way I can easily describe it, it's a number system that it goes 1 through 5. The higher up that you go, the more power this generator puts out.
Yeah.
And as Jeff explained, I thought when I saw this situation, oh crap, generator's totally done. It literally was burnt out. But the way that this generator works is, and all generators, is that its cell that was burnt out, in our case, was number 3, if I'm remembering correctly.
Number 4.
Number 4. So what we did was took that piece of copper, replaced it, and put it down to number 3. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yes. So we did that, right before Camp Blood, right? That was on Camp Blood, one of our biggest events of the year. And we knew leading up to that there was an issue with number 2 projector, with it being just a little dim at times, and certainly it was explained when we discovered that. But what we did, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, is you upped it again. You took it from, I think, 3 to 5?
No, that's what I'm going to do. When I called the technician out to check the taps, he moved it down to number 2.
2.
He took it off of 4. Well, there was nothing left of 4. He put it on number 2. I moved it to 3. And once the bulb wears to the point where that gap is a little bit wider that it has to jump and it starts flickering again, I'm going to have to take it from 3 to 5 because 4 is gone.
And you said something to me when we were in the back that, and this is something we've talked about, obviously being the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, looked at as a mecca of 35 millimeter, a preservation house. Presentation is everything to us. And we've been kicking around the idea of raising the wattage of the bulb. So why don't you tell the people what we're running now as far as wattage?
In the number 1 projector, we have a 4,000 watt bulb.
Right.
In the number 2 projector, we have a 4,500 watt bulb. The reason the number 2 projector has a bulb 500 watts brighter is because it has a bad reflector. The reflector is not in as good a condition. So to balance out the light, we've got a less powerful bulb with the good reflector and a more powerful bulb with the bad reflector.
That compensation level.
Yeah, so that the light is fairly well balanced, and it's not bad. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Now, we can go different ways with this. If I got a really good rebuilt reflector for the number 2 machine, then I'd have to back the bulb down to a 4,000 because then it'll be brighter than the number 1 machine.
Right.
Because then they'll both have good reflectors. So I would have to do that. Right now, we actually have more 4,500 watt bulbs than we do 4,000. So what I was thinking is, especially now since that one tap is burned out, I would like to replace that whole generator with another one that can go up to like 7,000 watt bulbs.
Oh yeah.
The one now that where the tap burned out, that one only can go up to what's there now, like a 4,500 watt bulb. That's about as high as it can go. Whereas the other one is a floor model. It's an older one, but it's more powerful. That one connected to the number 2 projector, that can go to 7,000 watts. We could really put a bright picture out on the screen, but we need another one of those.
Right.
Because like I said, the one where the tap went bad, that'll only go up to about 4,500 watts. That's its limit.
Right. It's going to peak. And that's the inspiring thing for what we're pushing for potentially in the off season, is getting that generator replaced. Obviously it has, a flaw that we can work around, but it is one of those situations that people may think that this is an easy fix, but when you're talking about this type of machinery at this age, this is something that takes some time to install. And as you guys know, the Mahoning runs now 5 days a week, a lot of weeks. So it's hard to find that time to get that in there. But we do have a connection for that generator that Jeff's talking about, which is a twin to the other one, right?
Yes, it would be a floor model. It would be a twin to the other one. Exactly. I know where there's 3 of them, and they're all available. And hopefully, when you get it there and you get it installed, you hope it works.
Sure.
That's another thing. It's not just you have to replace it and you have to do all the wiring, but then you got to hope that it works.
Right. And then we're there without a projector totally.
Right. It may not have been run for 20 years and you hook it all up and you find out that it's broken, doesn't work anymore. Then you got to get it repaired or replace it with yet another one.
Right.
So no, it's not cheap. It's not going to be cheap to do that. No.
Oh, certainly not cheap. And certainly the time, which is why the off season, when we do have 5-6 months off, we can really lean into it.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that everything like the Mahoning story is very divine at moments. And even the availability of said twin generator is very divine. And I think it's going to lend to the future and people seeing a big difference as far as the picture at the Mahoning, which is exciting,
It's a balancing act. Right now at 4,000, 4,500, depending on the projector, we have a good picture on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Only dark scenes, and they're dark for a reason, so you're not going to be able to see them that well, because you wouldn't be able to see them that well in an indoor theater either.
Right.
But for the most part, our picture is good at 4,500. I would like to go to 5,000 for sure, but I can't do that unless we replace the one generator.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act because
you can also go too bright where you're blowing it out. People say like, oh, that sounds great going to 6,500, 6,000, but that may be too bright. So that balancing act you're talking about is really taking those steps to see what the difference. Right.
Exactly. You go a step at a time. You go up a little bit at a time. 4,500, 5,000, 5,500.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's a balancing act. The only thing there is you start getting above 4,000, 4,500, those bulbs are very hard to find because most indoor theaters, that would be way too bright for an indoor theater. So they didn't make that many of them, only for drive-ins. So you go up to 5,000 feet, they're very hard to find.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly the lesson that was learned on my part, is seeing not only how the generators work, but that's really how a projectionist's mind works, is literally taking that little step by little step by little step and getting those improvements, and even seeing how our system functions with a balanced 2 projection system. And certainly it's one of those things that I love, somebody who I still consider myself growing in this business, learning as we go. Those are the moments that I really, really love and continue to get on a regular basis with Jeff at the helm, is kind of showing the art and the ins and outs of the drive-in and its culture. And the projection room obviously is a huge part of that for us. So
yeah, well, I really appreciate that. If you want a 2,000 watt bulb or a 3,000 watt, they're not hard to find. But once you start getting 4,500, 5, they just didn't make that many of them, and they don't last as long. That's what I was trying to think of. The higher wattage you get, the less they last. A 2,000 watt bulb should go for 2,000 hours, maybe even longer. If you're the kind that likes to run them to the end and not change them ahead of time, you can get at least 2,000 hours out of a 2,000 watt bulb. You start and get up to 5,000, 5,500. They're only going to last about 1,000 hours. That's it.
Yeah.
And they're gone.
And I'm functioning. I even brought Jeff in when I was running the indoor theaters. I brought in a couple of bulbs. And of course, way too light as far as the wattage coming out of them. But I'm used to that function in the first run theater. Like, one of the theaters I ran had 22 screens. So, the tracking of hours, the idea of tracking of hours, at least in the first run industry, is you have a warranty on a bulb. When you buy that bulb from any company, you have a small window of warranty. And normally that warranty is weighed on hours. So what they will do is they will time the hours, and most projectors will time the hours, the digital projectors. And the reason it really does that is if you blow out a bulb before those hours are done, you can get it replaced for free. And once you reach that warranty, you take it out the second it reaches it, because if it were to blow a minute after that, guess what? You're out of bulb,
That's exactly it. You're not going to get a free one. No.
Yeah. So it's just a different beast as far as obviously the indoor theaters and the megaplex. But what we do is so unique because there's also the elements that go into the presentation. We had a full moon, a beautiful full moon over Universal Monsters weekend.
Yep.
And whenever we have a clear night with a big full moon, you're sure as hell going to get a little bit of that up on the screen. Yeah. And the picture will look a little bit dimmer. It's almost like somebody has a flashlight on your projection screen.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's one of those things that we have to, again, constantly deal with. But we've been so blessed this year, and definitely toward the end of this year, it feels like the weather has been cooperating very nicely with us, where mid-season, we felt the other way.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Good evening, folks. It's nice to have you with us, and we think you'll agree it's great to go to a drive-in show.
A drive-in show, great to go.
Especially our drive-in, where movies are better than ever.
Great fun going, the movies we're always showing are the best here at our show, drive-in show.
The best in entertainment and the best in facilities, too. All the comforts of home. Restrooms are located in the snack bar building, and if you want to heat up supper for your little one, just bring his bottle to the snack bar. We'll be happy to take care of it free of charge. And folks, when you start thinking of something to eat, our snack bar is open and serving up delicious home-style food from a menu that'll make your mouth water. There's a big selection of sandwiches, including hot dogs, tender, juicy, and red hot. We have lots of hot popper fresh popcorn, too, a crispy treat to enjoy all evening long. And, of course, with all the good food, you're going to want something cool and refreshing to drink. So stop by the beverage counter and call out your order for a jumbo-sized cup of ice-cold Coca-Cola, America's favorite soft drink. For the taste of your life, enjoy Coca-Cola, here and now. It's the real thing, Coke.
I know that we have a lot of amazing events coming up. We wrapped up our Spaghetti Sundays, but I did just put out a request for, I know, one of Val's favorites. Mark knows what I'm talking about, but it's a Disney-owned Western, and I'm not going to say it just in case it falls through, but...
Chomps.
What was it?
Chomps.
Chomps. Always. One day we will play Chomps.
Oh, brother.
But we're hoping that comes through and we can make that work. But besides that, we only have our very last weekend set to announce. We have our first, the 29th, locked in. We're going with, because we have Dee Wallace in the house, legend Dee Wallace in the house for Halloween night. We figured let's do a Heroines of Horror type of arc over the weekend. Ladies of Horror, if you will. So, Mark, why don't you tell them the genius that we got going on for that Friday, which will be actually announced likely tonight. When you guys hear this, it certainly will be announced.
By the time you hear my voice, this will be old news. You already have your tickets.
Hopefully.
Won't you?
Yeah.
We're going family friendly on Friday because we lean into the horror pretty heavy because that's what people, pay money to come and see. So we're skewing that family friendly for spooky season for our last weekend with Ricci's Pieces. It is 2 works from Christina Ricci, early days. We have the Addams Family followed by Casper.
So that's an amazing double bill. Those movies together are going to play amazingly. But I think even more amazing is Mark's suggestion of that title.
Was it me?
It was you. I'm pretty sure it was you.
Well, I thought I had an embarrassment of Ricci's.
That's pretty good too.
That won't fit on the marquee.
But everybody pronounces Reese's Pieces as Reese's Pieces. That's how I've always said it. I know it's wrong, and you say it as a kid, and I think it just sticks with you. Like, why would you say Pieces? You know?
Yeah.
As somebody who has worked the cash register for years at the drive-in, or did,
It's Pieces.
more often than not, it was PCs.
Yeah. Reese's Pieces is that's a stroke of genius, sir. But we're super excited for that. It reminds me of what we did last year when we screened Hocus Pocus over our Halloween season. We always like to give the families a means to come out. You know, everybody loves Dee Wallace, but it's Halloween night. Are you going to be bringing your child, per se, to see Cujo and the Howling?
If you're cool, you will.
I mean, I guess depending what type of parent you are, or
Yeah.
how your kid rolls.
I mean,
but-
come on. We had kids for Chainsaw Massacre the other night. People kids all kinds of stuff.
we get kids for everything, and it's amazing. But in this situation, that's what we're kind of thinking for Friday is give the kids a little chance to come in and get their mini fun-sized treats and go around and do a little trick-or-treating on the lot. And again, hoping the weather is beautiful. That's the key.
Yes, that helps. Definitely.
Now for Saturday, this may be all figured out by the time that this hits your ears, but let's talk about Saturday. So it's Mischief Night, October 30th, the day before we bring Dee Wallace in. Again, keeping in the ladies of horror heroine feel. Obviously, we want to play Halloween. Halloween is like Back to the Future, like Ghostbusters, like some of these A-list titles. You could play it every year and it would knock out the park. Now, we literally did play this last year. So the idea for this year was to go Halloween 2 and Halloween H2O. As you guys know, if you're into the know, the lore was that Halloween 2 lets off, and then Halloween 3 is forgotten about, right? Am I right, Mark?
Halloween 3 has really grown in stature over the last, I would say,
yeah.
decade, more than anything else, or two. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like Halloween 3 because it didn't have Michael Myers, but it's a great standalone movie, and it's greatly
totally
appreciated now.
Well, and then the idea of H2O is that picks up where 2 lets off.
Yes.
So a situation like that, where we can kind of do an arc within an arc, have a little Jamie Lee Curtis as our featured heroine, and also have a kind of nice arced story without playing Halloween #1. So right now we have the requests out for Halloween H2O. Some people have certain feelings about H2O. I love the idea of this continuing story that eventually got forgotten about as well.
Yeah, well, did I tell you? First of all, those are the 2 Halloween sequels that the most recent Halloween cycle said, screw that, they never happened. So it is kind of a funny, these are like the 2
It's
lost
hilarious to
Halloween
me
sequels.
because there are multiple little storylines and arcs within the timeline of the Halloween franchise. And I love the fact that we can kind of shine a light on one of them that even now people don't shine a light on.
No, it's been erased. Did I tell you that I saw H2O? Did I ever tell you my H2O story?
No, let's hear it.
I used to travel for work. I worked for a video production company, and we were hired by some sizable software companies to videotape product rollouts. It was me pointing a camera in a hotel ballroom for 6 to 8 hours a day at people saying things I didn't understand. But I would have my evenings free, and they would fly me around the country to do it. And one of the places I would go was New York City. So I had a stipend per day for meals, which was like $20 or something. So I went to every gimmick restaurant I could find. I went to the Hard Rock. I went to the Comedy Nation. I went to Mars 2112, and I went to the Planet Hollywood. So I was walking down to Planet Hollywood one day, and I see a lot of people standing outside, like a commotion. And then Jamie Lee Curtis walks out the front door.
Oh, snap.
And she walks down into another crowd with a line of people at a place next door. So I see what's going on, and it's the Directors Guild Theater, which was really like next door to Planet Hollywood, and they were having a sneak preview of Halloween H2O, which wasn't going to be out for another maybe 3 weeks or more.
Right.
And apparently it was some kind of advanced screening radio station promo. And I just, like a fool, and a gambler, I stood at the end of the line, didn't have a ticket, and they let me in. I was the last person they let in.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So I walk in, it's this big theater filled with Halloween fans. Jamie Lee Curtis comes out on stage, does an intro to the movie. I see the movie with this insanely rabid crowd who are cheering and ooh, ah, like the best crowd you'd want to see anything with. And then at the end, she comes out and does like a half hour or more Q&A. So
Wow.
I liked the movie, and I've always had really good will toward it because I have that kind of crazy memory of how I first saw it.
You're like, I was literally there, man. I was there.
Yeah.
Me and Jamie Lee.
It played great with an audience. I have not seen it. I picked up the Laserdisc when it came out, but I really haven't seen it since it probably hit DVD.
That's what'll be really fun is I love seeing a movie like a Halloween or a Friday the 13th with the Mahoning crowd because they're so into it. You literally get those reactions that you would get at an indoor theater, and it kind of rumbles across the crowd and the air. It's really awesome. But here's the hang up. If this is something we're talking about and it didn't happen, you're about to know why. So obviously the Miramax Dimension titles are all up in limbo right now. You know, that library is being tossed around, sold, moved about. So I was told originally that MGM Park Circus had the rights to Halloween H2O. Turns out that the library, Miramax and Dimension, was sold to Paramount. So now we have a request out to Paramount to see if they hold the rights. Mark had uncovered that MGM Park Circus had a print, but not the rights, but they told us that they no longer have either. So this is, again, one of those things that booking 35 millimeter or just booking in general, sometimes you have to do the dig, but we're almost a month away from this show. So we have to make some decisions here. So this weekend we started talking about some alternatives. And what did we come up with?
Well, what I heard you guys talking about was that you were talking about Psycho, which I'm never going to say no to. That's one of my stone cold favorite movies, and we've never run it in the current era of the Mahoning.
Right.
Now, why run Halloween 2 and Psycho? What's the
Well, first of all, Psycho's great,
Of course.
but you have the mother-daughter thing going on there. You
There
have
it
Jamie
is.
Lee Curtis, daughter of Janet Leigh, star of Psycho.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're thinking as an alternative, which there's been some really good titles tossed about. Titles, by titles, I mean name of the event. We always like to give our weekends or even our standalone day events a title. So I know that Lee and Lee was kicked around, right? Like Lee, L, right?
Right.
I had Mother-Daughter Dance of Death.
Mother-daughter dance of death.
That won't fit on the marquee either.
Yeah, it's gonna be horrible. But I like Jamie and Janet. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
You know, so we'll see what happens. By the time this hits your ears, you'll know what happens, but we should hopefully find that out within the next week or so. It's crazy to me. We've never played Psycho, and when you think about it, we've never played any Hitchcock.
Jay keeps saying Hitchcock weekend. Is this the year we do a Hitchcock weekend?
Yes.
There are so many amazing titles. Hitchcock is like another thing you could do annually or biannually, and you would be a long time before you ran out of good stuff to run.
Totally.
Yep.
What's your favorite? There's so many. It's never ending. But what's
Mine
your
has to be
favorite?
Psycho, and I have a soft
Psycho?
spot for Trouble with Harry because nobody plays it, and it's a nice autumnal kind of cozy movie.
Yeah. You have a favorite, Jeff?
Trying to think. Favorite Hitchcock. Oh boy.
It's tough. I mean,
It
like,
is tough.
well, here's a question. Have you ever run any Hitchcock? I mean, I know you haven't in the last 7 years with us, but
No. Before, yes. In fact, I think I ran his last film brand new before he passed away, which was Family Plot.
holy crap. We played Family Plot. When did
yes.
you run that?
Yeah, Family Plot was his last film before he passed away. I ran that
That's
brand
right.
new. I'm trying to think where I ran it. I can't remember offhand, but I did run that brand new.
I think that was with us. I think
There was a Tunnel Vision Tuesday. Is that when it was part of, or
No,
Universal
this
Weekend?
was like 2015 for
It
like
was
might have been
Universal
that
Weekend,
Universal
wasn't it?
Weekend. Yeah, might have been Universal. Remember when Harry did that Universal Weekend that had Jurassic Park and Waterworld and all sorts of stuff like mashed together?
Yeah.
That might have been 2015.
That was the weekend we had Brazil, They Live, and The Thing.
Yes.
And the fog rolled in partway through They Live, and The Thing was completely unwatchable.
That's right.
And we still had first-timers come up to us and say how great a night it was.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that, but I did run it brand new in 77. I was 76 or 77 when it came out, and I did run it brand new. But while you gave me time to think, I would think probably my favorite Hitchcock is Rear Window.
Yeah, that's a great one. I was going to say that. I'm thinking back to some of the, I don't know. It's tough to say because now they all kind of have notoriety if they're a Hitchcock.
Yes, they do.
I remember seeing one that really caught me off guard, The Lady Vanishes.
Oh, early one. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, with Redgrave, Michael Redgrave. That, I think, begs for a weekend. But if we can dip our toe into the Hitchcock waters on Mischief Night and make that happen, that's a no-brainer. And if it doesn't happen, we're working on next year's calendar.
Right.
Jeff and I started meeting up again on Thursdays, and we're going to start revving up the engine into the off season. And a lot of the off season works are all about prepping for what will be the 2022 season. It's crazy.
Exactly. That's what we do during the off season, is get ready for the next one.
Yeah. And it's exciting. Even looking at some of the requests, some of the things that have come to fruition this year, some of the partnerships that have come to fruition this year, it's going to be an amazing year. It's every single year I keep thinking like, could it get any better? And it always gets better. It always finds a way to get better. So I'm looking forward to a specific booking that would be 7 years in the making, dream come true for me. So stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride as always.
Pages torn from a frontier dance hall girl's intimate diary come to the screen as one of this year's motion picture highlights, The Deadly Companions. Starring Maureen O'Hara as the woman's slander drove into shocking and dangerous adventures. Brian Keith, determined, ruthless in his pursuit of vengeance. Steve Cochran, as reckless and irresistible a scoundrel as ever lived. And Chill Wills, topping his great performance in Alamo, The Deadly Companions. An outstanding cast in a man-woman rough-and-tumble drama that hits like a thunderbolt. Pathé America presents in Panavision and Pathé Color, The Deadly Companions.
October is National Movie Month, when the best of the newest movies will be shown at your favorite theaters. Join the world and share the romance, color, adventure, hilarity, excitement, and splendor that spell movies during National Movie Month. Be here in October. It's National Movie Month.
Mark, so I hear that we have gotten even more voicemail messages from our Anchor platform.
This is true. In case anybody doesn't know, Anchor is where this podcast is hosted. I upload the podcast files to Anchor, and then Anchor from there distributes it to all of your favorite podcast or music streaming services, shall we say. And via Anchor, if you go to our page, which is anchor.fm/Mahoning Drive-In, there's a little button there that says message, and that lets people leave us a voice message. Now, it seems from empirical evidence that these voice messages can only be about 59 to 60 seconds. So we want you to talk as much as you want. If you leave us a message, just be aware that you may get cut off. So you may want to keep your eye on the dial there and then just intentionally split up what you want to say into several messages if need be. So we have a bunch here that I have not listened to. So first up, we have First Drive-In Experience by Albert Mariotti.
Hey guys, my name's Al. My first driving experience is back in 1986. I was about 8 years old. My two cousins, they were teenagers at the time, I guess. They drove down they drove us down to Claremont, Delaware. There was a Naaman's Drive-In, and we grew up in Delaware County, PA. And before we got into it's not a theater, it's the drive-in, they had me lay down on the floor and they stuck pillows and blankets over me, covered me up, and snuck me in. Saved $5. And once we got in, we watched the Three Amigos, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I remember the burning, well, is the singing bush, especially the burning bush. And I think I got that reference at the time. I guess I don't remember. I was so young, but I loved it. I loved the experience. And then the driving just kind of went away. I don't know how it got torn down, and we never had too many around us to begin with down in Delaware County. And I've been following you guys on Facebook. I saw your documentary a few years ago, and I've been meaning to get up there. I finally got up with my son to see Monster Mash 5 with my son. He's 8 years old, so everything kind of came full circle. And kind of repent for our sins there for not paying. And I plan on coming back with him. It's going to be more memories for the drive-in for him. He's already tied with me with one, and there's definitely going to be more, and I can't wait. All right, guys, take care. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. May the drive-in never die.
Well, thank you so much, Albert. That's pretty wonderful.
That's incredible. Come on. What drive-in did he say? Naaman's?
Naaman's. Naamans.
And that was in Delaware County.
That was down near the down near the Pennsylvania-Delaware border. So I used to work for that company. In fact, I was there one of the last years it was open. I was helping the company get it open. What had happened is Naaman's had closed. They thought it was going to sell, and then it didn't. So it was closed for 1 year, and the vandals got to it. They broke all the glass, and they just tore the place apart. And then the next year, my company decided to open again. The company's name was Budco, which was a very big theater chain in the Philadelphia area, was Budco. And it was a Budco theater. And they sent me down there along with a couple other guys to get this place ready to open for another year. And it was totally trashed. I mean, just from back to front, it was a mess. I mean, they even pulled out the water heater and threw it all. I mean, and we actually got it done and got it open again for another year.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, it might have been open 2 more years, and then it finally did sell and they tore it down. But I remember Naaman's, and not far from Naaman's was the 202 Drive-In. That was also a Budco theater, and that one was sold and got torn down. So
crazy.
What a mess.
Well, I'm seeing here Naaman's opened May 17th, 1968 with the Sand Pebbles. It's a great opening right there.
I've still never seen that.
No?
Yeah. I think I've got a lot of missing links in my Steve McQueen knowledge, unfortunately.
Yeah, located at Naaman's Road in Claymont near Philadelphia Pike.
Right. And it could be kind of noisy because the railroad ran right alongside of it.
That's what it says. It bordered on each side by a railroad. Only the one on the right was used. There was a great deal of interference in the sound, and the in-car speakers were reinstalled. The train engineers loved to flash the screen and blast the horn as they drove by each night.
Yeah.
In 1986, Budco sold out to AMC, which proceeded to close the drive-in on September 28th, 1987, with the triple feature Hellraiser's House 2, The Second Floor, and Death Before Dishonor. Represent.
Wow. Death Before Dishonor was a Fred Dryer military action movie.
That's the way to go out.
It sounds like a horror triple, but it was 2 horrors and an action. That's solid.
That is fun. Yep. How about it? Well, certainly, I'm sure most of us can relate with the hiding in the back seat of a car and being covered up by blankets and pillows. I certainly remember that happening when we took the cousins, when it was like a big crowd, you know what I mean? Where it's like, all right, whoever took us was like, I'm not paying for all 10 of these kids.
This is where carload pricing would have come in handy.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've talked about doing a Chevy Chase weekend, or we've postulated if we did a Chevy Chase weekend, what would we show? And Three Amigos is one that I always kind of toss in there as if it was a 2-nighter and different movies each night. I think I would want to make room for Three Amigos because it's so much fun.
Oh, it's amazing. That would play incredibly well. I always go back to the Holy Grail, Monty Python, and that screening, the way that the laughter was just uproarious, And I imagine it would be the same with some of those gems. Certainly Three Amigos. That was a great one, man.
And that was, thanks, Albert, so much. Thanks for the love. Thanks for bringing the youth out. And obviously, thanks for the story, because we're all drive-in fans, and everybody's drive-in story lets us vicariously experience a drive-in we never went to. So thank you for that.
That's right.
Next up, we have Ron Heffelfinger sings that musical question.
Hey, guys. My name is Ron Heffelfinger. I'm from Bartow, Pennsylvania. First of all, I'd just like to thank you for everything you do. I'm a big fan, kind of from afar, live a little over an hour away, and unfortunately haven't made it up since you've gone to the Retro 35 format. I did grow up in Danielsville, about 25 minutes away from you guys. So as a teenager, did spend some time at the drive-in. I was a little bit closer to Becky's, so went there mostly as a child with my family. Eventually, they moved into the adult theater format. And so I started going to Shankweiler's a little more often than that. After that, when I started driving, I did visit your drive-in. I do remember some double features, and you talked about that in your most recent podcast, some of the double features you had in the past, but reliving those to the newspaper ads. Very first time I went there, I saw Urban Cowboy and Up in Smoke by Cheech and Chong was the second feature. Fortunately, it started pouring during Up in Smoke, and we left a little bit early. I also remember seeing Superman 2 in 1981, and the co-feature was Mel Brooks's History of the World Part 1 classic double feature. Also remember in 1982 seeing Grease 2. The co-feature with Grease 2 was a movie called Paternity with Burt Reynolds and I can't think of her name, the mother from the Christmas Vacation movie. Also have kind of a funny story. In 1984, I took my wife to Mahoning. We were engaged at the time, and it was the first time she had visited there. We went to the Highway Drive-In quite a bit in Collegeville. We were dating Limerick, I'm sorry, not Collegeville. And we went to see Friday the 13th 4. And the real reason we wanted to go was they were the only theater around that had the Dead Zone, Stephen King's movie with Christopher Walken. We drove up to the theater, and as we're approaching the screen, which always used to get me a little excited seeing the screen, there was actually a hole in the screen. And we were wondering if the theater was even open, so we pulled up to the gate and paid to get in, and we just assumed that the hole in the screen must not be where they're showing the movie, but of course the movie did fill the whole CinemaScope screen. And I remember there being a guy by himself in a car, and the movie started, and he just kind of got out of his car and looked, and I think like Gus was having trouble to believe that they were watching a movie with a hole in the screen. We had a good time anyway, enjoyed it. Later on, when we had kids, I remember we took them to see Pocahontas, and I can't remember the co-feature for that one, but I remember it poured during that one too, so we left early. Didn't have a whole lot of luck with weather. Thanks, guys. I just want to share some of the stories I had about the drive-in. Like I said, haven't gotten back up yet, but looking forward to doing that someday, maybe a Sunday or Tuesday when it's not so crazy. Get a little too old for the craziness, but we'll see. Thanks so much again, guys.
Thank you, Ron, for that wonderful gift. That was so wonderful.
Yeah.
First of all, it's nice to know that it poured all the time back then, too.
Ron Heffelfinger, you were my customer back then. I ran that drive-in.
Wow.
In 1986 and 1987. I had it for 2 years. Again, that was with Budco. That was another Budco drive-in. I ran that in 86 and 87. So you saw me there at
nuts.
At one time or another. Yeah. And I was in my 20s then. I was in my 20s when I ran that drive-in.
The one with the hole in the screen?
Yeah, the one with the hole in the screen. And let me tell you how that happened.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. I was there during the day, working on the projectors or doing something, and or waiting for a concession order. For some reason I was there during the day, And I went outside of the projection booth and I hear somebody hammering in the distance. It's a boom, boom, boom. I hear this, what sounded like a hammer on a nail. And I thought, man, that guy's really pounding on that thing because I can hear it all the way over here. It's a bam, 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 bam. So I'm looking, but it didn't make any sense. There's no houses around me. It was kind of like the Mahoning. It was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm looking like, where's this guy? So it wasn't some guy pounding in a nail. I looked up and there was a woodpecker pounding a hole in my screen. A woodpecker. I mean, I'm looking up there and it, real loud. And I'm like, that sounded exactly like a hammer on a nail. It was a woodpecker. He's hanging on the side of my screen, poking a hole through it.
Amazing. That's incredible.
So that's where the hole came from, was a woodpecker. It was a wooden screen. Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It was a small hole, but it was small, but it was noticeable.
Sure.
I think it was in the upper right-hand corner, but they weren't going to put any money into it and repair it because they knew they were going to sell it eventually.
Yeah.
So they weren't back then. Drive-ins were not very well kept up because most of them they knew were going to soon be bought out and sold. Budco was bought out by AMC, as Virgil said earlier, and then AMC shut them all down and sold them all. Right. So I was there its last couple of years, but
and they had what, 2 screens, right?
No, it was just like the Mahoning. It was a single
screen. Yeah.
It was a single screen, just like this. Yep.
How about it?
So I love hearing about vintage double features.
Yeah, an 80s.
That's part of what I love doing with the ads, because sometimes you look back and you're like, well, I've never heard of either of those, or I've heard of one of those. And sometimes it's 2 movies that are just now considered classics that were being shown together. Thank you so much for that. I can't say enough how much I enjoyed that. Superman 2, which is a movie I love, and Paternity, which is a little known Burt Reynolds movie that's really funny.
Beverly D'Angelo.
Beverly D'Angelo. Lauren Hutton is in it, if I recall. And it's about this guy who's single, upwardly mobile businessman who desperately wants a son and basically just hires women to be a surrogate for him.
Yes.
And the poster is this classic one of Burt Reynolds in a tracksuit. It's a spoof of pointing at the camera, and it's like the Uncle Sam classic poster, but it says he wants you to have his baby. And at some point, I'm going to make that into a T-shirt, or I'm going to buy that poster and put it in our snack bar because it's
wrap it. I don't know if you have any tattoos, but that would be a good one.
It's a good chest tattoo, I think.
Yep, just like here it is. But yeah, that is a perfect perspective. And again, a time machine for myself. I was literally born in 83, and the magic that was happening at the Mahoning Den, that's too cool. And the fact that he hasn't been since we've gone retro means he hasn't been there in probably 7 years. So
that's about
hopefully,
right.
Well, when you come out, my friend, come out, find us, and we're going to reminisce.
I love that you remember what movies you saw with what movies from 40 years ago. I can remember a lot of double features, but some certain things I can tell you that I saw at a drive-in, but I have no idea what I saw them with. And to get that recall is excellent. Also, to get a reminder that Becky's was once an adult theater, because that is so far away from what they are now. It's hard to, literally incredible. It's hard to believe.
And to think that happened when? In the 80s, Jeff?
Yeah, what, Becky's?
Yeah.
Yeah, that went on for many years. It was a rated X drive-in for years. The attendance had gotten so bad that he felt that was the only direction he could go.
Like a lot of theaters did.
This is the original owner, and he has since, of course, passed away. But the family finally decided to get away from the X and try family films again, and it worked. Fortunately for them, it worked. Yeah. But it was a rated X theater for years.
But there was that period, I guess, that where families or folks like this fan said, "Hey, I guess I'm going to have to go to Shanks for a little while."
That's exactly what happened. Yep.
And for anybody who's listening, who's not familiar with the area we're in, Becky's is a 2-screen, very, very well maintained 2-screen drive-in, maybe 20 minutes from where we are.
Yep, family friendly.
More family friendly. It's first run digital and predominantly, family oriented films. And then Shankweiler's is on record as being the oldest existing continuously operating drive-in in the U.S. And they're how far from us? 40 minutes or so?
Yeah, I'd say about 40. Yeah.
And they're first run digital. Well, everybody's pretty much first run digital, more or less.
Yes.
Yeah, big fan of both, big supporters of both, and it goes both ways. That's the thing I love about this industry in general is we're all survivors. We are all in this same kind of preservation of the drive-in culture fight. And like I say on the air every single night that I'm personally on the radio, if there's a drive-in around you, support it. That's what's going to keep the culture alive. Making the trek out to the Mahoning, having that magical memory is amazing and essential, but certainly supporting your hometown drive-in. If it's within driving distance, go and check them out.
And buy food.
Always. Yeah.
Exactly.
Even if it's a little something. I love theaters. I want them to exist indoor or outdoor. Every time I go to a movie theater, I at least buy a soda because I know I'm helping keep the place alive.
As you guys know, that's kind of how the business functions. Studios take a big chunk, especially first run, take a big chunk of the box office, and these outfits are reliant upon selling popcorn and sodas to you. So that's a great point to make. Anytime you stop into a theater, it's great that you drop your $10 to see the movie, but always grab yourself a popcorn, even if you're not going to eat it. You guys
seriously, buy a box of candy and take it home. That's what I would do half the time. I would eat a little and it would live in my car for a while.
Yeah, so that was an amazing one. I love this fans getting involved with the show, because when we set out to do this podcast, obviously it's about shining a light on the ins and outs of what the Mahoning does and how we function as a business. But its main priority is to shine a light on the drive-in culture as a whole and what that means to people. And I always said at a certain age range, everybody has a drive-in story. Everybody has these memories. It's such a relatable topic for a lot of people, and this is the place to come and share it. So why don't you tell them again where they can record?
On the internet or on your phone. On your phone's internet. Either way, the internet's involved. It is www.anchor.fm/Mahoning Drive-In. And right there you go, and you will see a little button that says messages. And we have triple confirmed that you can only record about 60 seconds at a time. So if you keep your eye on that, just leave us multiple messages. That's what the last two guys did, and it worked out great. I stitch them all together. Nobody ever knows at the end. If you say, if you say, oh, that got cut off, it'll get cut out. But please talk as much as you want, because these memories are glorious.
Yeah, what a fun aspect of the show.
Pardon us, but let us break in here again to remind you to please make sure the park lights are out now, as the feature's about ready to start again. And we'd like to also remind you to watch the foot on the brake pedal so the people behind you don't have to stare over a couple of big red lights at the movie screen. Please don't back in or out of ramps, and observe the speed limit at all times here in the theater. If you perhaps tear a speaker from the post, simply replace it on the post or drop it by the snack bar. Either way, we'd appreciate it, and enjoy yourself, won't you?
It has been called the most exciting film of the year and the biggest film in a decade. The people who created it have won 15 Academy Awards. It has been in production for 3 years. It is the story of an ocean liner that capsizes, and it may be the greatest escape adventure of our time. Now, 20th Century Fox presents Irwin Allen's production of The Poseidon Adventure. Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Red Buttons, Carol Lindley, Roddy McDowell, Stella Stevens, and Shelley Winters in The Poseidon Adventure, the greatest escape adventure of our time. Who will survive? The Poseidon Adventure, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
What else do we have, Mark? What else we got on the docket, my friend?
Well, the one thing I wanted to talk about the last time with Jeff, both of you, I think, were involved in this, is going back through my research, not long into this whole retro Mahoning thing, or right before it, I saw listings for an entity called the Big Pocono Outdoor Theater.
Yeah.
That's right. How about it?
What was that?
I'll let Jeff explain that, and then I'll tell my side.
That was an interim name for the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, because the owner of the property thought that the guy that was here before me had trademarked that name, and that when I took over, I was not going to be able to use the name the Mahoning Drive-In Theater any longer. So he came up with this website called the Big Pocono Outdoor Theater. And I didn't like the name, really. I mean, I guess he did it on the spur of the moment, but I'm like thinking, no, please tell me this can't be. So I looked it up on the Federal Register, and fortunately, the guy prior to me did not trademark that name. So I could use it again. So I called the property owner and I said, listen, I said, I can still use the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And he says, no, he says, because the people have such a bad taste in their mouths because the guy ran a bad fundraiser, blah, blah, blah. He said, you should really change it. I said, no, I said, I don't want to change the name. I really don't. He said, okay. He said, if that's what you want, so I said, all right. So then I did trademark the name, the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. That is a name that I own, and nobody else can have a drive-in theater by that name. So I'm glad that I did it, because I just was not in love with the Big Pocono Outdoor Theater. So as a website, I think it's still active. He actually could shut it down anytime he wants, but I don't mind if he keeps it open. I mean, I don't mind, because it redirects to this site. It redirects to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater anyway. So it's no big deal, but that's the history behind it. We thought we were actually going to have to change the name of this theater. And I was very glad that we didn't have to.
And you hit it on the head with the history of it all. Is, there's a lot of memories, as we're finding more and more doing this podcast, tied to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And that is something that obviously is a big part of what we do. We are all about preserving the past that is the Mahoning Drive-In Theater.
Right. So. And you didn't hear the worst part of it. You didn't hear the worst part. The property owner was going to come up here and cut the arrow off of the marquee because it says Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Well, Mahoning Drive-In. He was going to come up and cut with a cutting torch. He was going to cut the arrow off of the marquee and just leave the thing where the letters are.
Wow.
And I'm like, no, don't touch the thing. Man, I'm telling you, stuff I had to go through at this place in the early times. Yeah. But I finally convinced him, no, I'm going to register the name. It's leave the marquee alone. So he did. Obviously, he did.
Well, I remember, here's my story, is that was happening right as Matt and myself came in. And when we first started the social medias, it was focused on the Big Pocono Outdoor. And the craziest thing is our reasoning behind trying to push that. They had 250 fans on that page.
Whoa,
250 fans. And we were like, that's 250 fans. So we, with potential people, we could get out to the theater. But as you guys know, we started all the Mahoning social medias from scratch, and they've grown into kind of our place to speak to the fans and communicate with you guys visually, and obviously beyond with everything that happened this year. But it's crazy to think back on what could have been, but it was kind of a flash. It was here and gone before, anything could ever really come of it.
Thank goodness, because if I would have had to change the name, my heart would have been broken, because it's always been the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. It's not like some of these drive-ins where they change hands, they change names 3 or 4 times over the space of 40 years. It's 72 years. It's always been the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And I was bent and determined that it was going to stay that way.
Yeah. And with everything that surrounds the Mahoning Drive-In Theater now, the legend, the lore, all of that stuff, the branding we've done, all of that. It's just crazy to think of it as anything else,
Exactly.
It's trade.
Exactly.
What a wild trip in time this podcast is. It really is. It's obviously our business is steeped in nostalgia, and we always say that the theater itself is a time machine, but here you literally can go back in time. You can get these stories and little slices of life and experiences. So this is a really, really fun time every time we get to come together, and I appreciate you guys making the time for it. But more than anything, the fans. The amount of love we get for this podcast and people coming up and loving what we're doing is really inspiring. And like we said, the off season is a time for us to focus on next year's season, but also we can focus a little bit on the podcast and Patreon materials. So I saw Mark. Why don't you tell the people what you did? I saw the most recent installment of Into the Vault with Mark.
Well, when we're going to talk about Patreon a little bit, folks, so sorry about that. Or you're welcome, depending on how you view it. So Patreon, if you don't know, is this little thing we have off to the side that helps us keep the lights on, basically. It's an income stream for us. And if you pay your $4.99, $9.99, or $19.99 a month, you get various levels of stuff from us, be they, physical items or benefits on the lot, or just the thrill of hearing me talk even more. So one of the things we talked about doing from the beginning were video segments, weekly video segments. And we didn't really realize how busy I was going to be all year. So I just finally shot a bunch of them, and it's called Into the Vault with Mark. And that's only so that you know what my name is before I start yapping. And it's me talking about old movies that I like that you might not know, or might have slipped through the cracks, that may or may not be related to our drive-in or a drive-in or memory I have. And I put up the first one this last week, and that's for the $9.99 and higher subscribers. And it's me talking about this Shirley MacLaine movie called What a Way to Go that I saw for the first time recently. It just bowled me over at how funny it was.
I'm super excited to watch this after that review.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And Kino has a Blu-ray that looks so good.
Jeff, you remember this movie?
No, not offhand. No.
It's from 1964, and I'm going to give away half of what I talk about. It's from 1964, and Shirley MacLaine plays this woman who keeps falling in love with very simple, honest, wonderful men who then suddenly become incredibly successful at their job, have less time for her, and die. And it just, it sounds darker than it is, but it's the men that she comes in contact with are like the biggest stars of their era.
It's not.
It's gorgeous to look at. It's really funny. And I just highly recommend it if you've never seen it.
Who were the men? It was Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke, Dean Martin, Paul Newman, Robert Mitchum, Gene Kelly.
That's insane.
Bob Cummings, and maybe more.
That's just
and again,
insane.
If somehow you could watch the movie without like even seeing the opening titles, and where it just suddenly Paul Newman shows up, you're like, what? Yeah. It was a grade A studio picture that just doesn't get talked about for whatever reason. But it's the Blu-ray looks stunning. And somebody was saying on Patreon, this is the kind of thing they would love to see on our screen. And they suggested maybe we do like a pre-sale only thing where if we sell enough tickets, we actually show the movie. But I don't know how feasible that is. But it's the kind of movie that would look amazing on that CinemaScope screen.
That's fun.
So yeah, these little videos, Into the Vault, will be that. It'll be me talking about old, maybe obscure, maybe not movies. One a week for however long I feel like talking about them. I think they wind up being between like 7 and 10 minutes for the most part. And I still do want to do more videos on the lot. We've just been so busy. Maybe we'll wind up shooting a lot of that stuff as the season winds down.
Well, that's the thing I'm thinking too, is we have so much footage collectively from over the season. Yes. And the off season is going to be the time where we can really kind of, hey, edit this together and put it out in a little package and, have you guys relive.
I try to do that for some of our bigger events, is be out and about and cobble a lot of footage together and then cut them. I did one for Zombie Fest and I did one for something else. But again, sometimes we just get so busy. Either it's too busy to shoot the footage or too busy to edit it in a timely manner. So there probably will be a lot of looks back at this season in the off season, and maybe even at previous seasons, because we do have quite an archive of audio and video that I've been amassing from previous years that I'm hoping to make Patreon content as well.
Yeah, what I loved about the Into the Vault segments is that we're talking movies. A lot of the times where we dig into, hey, we just played these movies or these movies are coming up, but we don't do kind of these deep dives into movies and what brought us all here, the love of cinema. So we can certainly stretch out a little bit and hit some of those choice titles.
And I mean, I hope we will talk movies more as we go here. We've done it a little in the past. And then again, to talk about the Patreon thing, we do Patreon exclusive podcasts that are a mix of questions submitted by Patreon members or topics they throw out. And occasionally in those, they will just say, what's your favorite prison movie? What's your favorite U-boat movie? And we'll ramble on about that on those shows. So there's more movie talk to come. Don't worry.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
We love talking to you guys, and thank you as always to the fans for taking us into your hearts and going along on this journey, the Mahoning Miracle story. And this journey certainly continues. The legend continues as we roll into October. All right, guys, on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.